Hello, I'm Ritchie Knox and welcome to Virtuous Teacher. In this episode, we'll be talking about the biggest mistakes that you may be making as a teacher that's stopping you from going from one level to the next. All right, before we jump into this amazing discussion, I would like to invite you to check out the descriptions area where you can find out ways to support me and also connect with me. Now, let's jump right into the discussion. What are some big mistakes that you could be making that you can fix? All right, we're talking about fixable errors. All right, the very first one is being too reactive. You know, a student over here makes a sound and you explode, and then little Johnny drops a pen and starts sneakering and you explode over here. And then the PA system comes on, you get outrageously upset and your students see it. All right, you're just too reactive. It's almost like you're hypersensitive. Everything that happens, a noise, a chatter, a laugh, and everything that's going on causes a reaction from you. That is not the way to be. All right. You have to be prepared. All right. You have to be ready for disruptions, distractions, so ready that when they happen, it's almost like you knew they were going to happen 10 years ago. You know or knew that these things were going to happen today 10 years ago. That's how you have to come across. So when little Johnny laughs, you correct it, but you don't overreact. We're trying to stop the overreaction to everything because you expect that a kid will be a kid or a young adult will be a young adult. So these behaviors don't cause you to go and spin out. All right, the next thing is one big mistake that you may be making: correcting all behaviors aloud. All right, so a student, is doing something in the corner and you feel like you have to verbally out loud check that student. Well, what if I told you that that is not always necessary? If a look or a gesture can fix the problem, then use that. Sometimes I'll be, doing something on this side, talking to this group of students, and we have this very hyper alert attention span when it comes to being a teacher. We can see everything, right? That's our superpower. So you're teaching over to your right and you see something to your left that a student is doing and you know it's wrong, and you look over, and if you're me, you lock eyes with that student. You know what I'm talking about. You lock eyes with them and you give them a gesture or you give them a point and what happens is when you do that, you correct the behavior in a way that is nonverbal. And that puts the child in a very precarious position because when you when you check them out loud, now they must respond because you're damaging their credibility. Look, let me tell you something. When it comes to popularity and, attention and stuff like that, that is all kids have. In fact, I think that is their currency. All right. Popularity, attention, their reputation, that is their currency. That's the only thing they have. So when you check a student out loud, a lot of times what you're doing is you're inviting conflict. When in reality, a simple nod or a wink or what have you could fix the problem. And because you didn't embarrass them, they don't feel the need to respond aloud either. So there's, put it away, But you got signals. If you can use those, you'll become more efficient because now the student realizes that you don't want to embarrass them. You're not just correcting him or her for the sake of hurting their reputation. You're literally just trying to get them to put everything away so that we can take a test. So yeah, that shows maturity as an educator. Next thing is treating students like a number and not like people. That is a huge mistake that a lot of teachers make. They basically look at it as a dictatorship. They come in, the hierarchy is set, they're the head of the classroom and everybody else is peasants. You don't ever want your students to feel that that is your mindset. You want to treat them like people because guess what? Newsflash. That's exactly what they are. They're not even students. They're just people. That's it. And they're under your tutelage. But at the end of the day, they leave and they go out into society. So when you treat them as if they're people, you also realize at that particular point that they can have good days. They can have bad days. They're smart, actually. They might demonstrate otherwise, but genuinely, they're smart. They have some intelligence. And when you look at them that way, what happens is they realize you see them that way. All right. You ever been in a class and you can just tell that the teacher is only there to get a paycheck and they're very short with you? They just, hey, just to get you out the way. And then contrast that with being in a classroom with a teacher who sees you. How much more effective is that teacher as it relates to reaching you and teaching you? I'll tell you, it is a thing. All right, the next big mistake that you could be making is being afraid. Each morning, you might be, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with so-and-so. This student's going to say this and that student's going to do that. Being afraid, that is one of the biggest mistakes you could be making. As a teacher, you have so many resources at your disposal. And it's like being Batman or Batwoman going into a crime-ridden city. You have a tool belt with all these different things you can use, and you just need to realize your strength as an educator. I'll give you some of the things that I can think of off the top of my head. You got phone calls to parents. You got emails to parents. Very quickly, you can stop a class, call a parent and say, hey, your son, your daughter's doing this. Can you please speak with your child right now? Don't do it later. Don't do it when you get home on your personal time, which is another mistake that you might be making, bringing work home, but we'll save that for a different video. No, you call right then and there while you're on the clock. And then you have that child do that walk of shame to that telephone in your room. And you have them embarrass themselves since they wanted to try to, create chaos in your classroom. You got write-ups and suspensions, which we obviously don't want to resort to. But if you're documenting a child's behavior and the behavior appears to be pretty extreme, then you tell me what you're supposed to do when a young scholar calls a young lady a B word and then kicks somebody else's chair and then threatens you. Like, come on. At some point, there has to be repercussions. The next thing is redirection. That is a tool. Okay, you can take a child and say, hey, I would like you to go to the back of the class where you can be by yourself and reflect. Time out, some of you call it. For me, I just call it redirection. They're in or amongst the general population, and you're realizing that this student has playing on the mind, so much so that it's threatening your lesson in your entire classroom. So what do? You pluck them out and you say, excuse me, can you please take your things and move to a different area within the classroom? That's a redirection. And when they go to the back, they're by themselves, isolated, and it's very difficult for them to, create chaos from where they are. Now, I don't know how your classroom is structured, but I'll tell you this, my classroom is structured in a very effective manner. Of course, I have a general population area, but I've also set up 4 different areas outside of the generation population area. Or I have 3 seats here. That's for students that just having like level 1 issues. I just can't get to them. I have seats behind that. That's for level 2 issues. These scholars are just way off. I have a single seat behind the yellow seats. This is the white chair. This chair is for scholars that's just way off and have no chance of coming back. And then I have another single seat on the opposite side. I have 4 levels of behavioral seating for students who have super issues. That's all within my classroom. It's almost as if my classroom is a school. Now, if you make it to seat number 4, I can't do anything with you for that day. I'm not sure they even, I don't think there is any hope for that day for this particular student. And that's okay. Everybody has that day, has that moment. But the point I'm trying to make is a redirection can change everything. I'll tell you, I've had several. I'll go with the number 13 students. I had 13 students today going to these isolated spaces so that they can focus. You remove the temptation to act out because they're by themselves now, and they're not really by themselves. I can see them. Okay, they're not far away. I mean, I'm not saying they're like 100 yards away. They're just away from the general population or the general group. They're kind of by themselves. That even if they wanted to talk to somebody, they can, but they would have to scream across the classroom, which I've already set the expectation for not being okay. See how that works? Anyway, the next tool that you have in your tool belt is experience. Okay, there's no way you should be afraid after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 13 years. I'll even go as far as 2 years of experience in the classroom. Why? Because you've probably seen a great deal of the things that these children have to offer. Haven't you seen everything that a child has to throw at you? What makes this next day to be, what makes it any more, why should you be afraid? All right. Why? Because little Johnny's going to come in and talk while you're teaching. That's not enough to be afraid. What? Little Timothy is going to use some profanity. I mean, it happens. You've heard it before. You've seen it before. Or, oh, wait, Samantha's going to talk back. Is that enough to be afraid? Or if you're prepared, should you just be ready for that to happen? It goes back to the first point, not overreacting, being proactive. All right. So you should never be afraid. Next, forgetting that they are responsible. I should say forgetting that as teachers, we are responsible for teaching students through their challenges, meeting them where they are and coaching them through to show progress. I mean, that is our job. So when I say meeting students where they are, I mean realizing that some students are going to come in lacking some of the skills necessary to make it through a classroom period, or make it through, your class or any class without any issues. Some students lack that. And I think as teachers, some of us have forgotten our role and responsibility. So what I mean by that is we expect every class to go perfectly and that we should have no issues or no conflicts. Well, what if I told you that your job is to teach students through that? Your job is to let students know what's going on, where they are in the spectrum of education, and then coach them to where they should be. Okay, so I'll have a class full of let's say 30 students. Of those 30, 28 can at least sit down and pretend to be on task. And let's say I have 2 students who just can't do it. Well, I'm not going to lose my cool and lose my I'm not going to go crazy and say I can't reach these 2 kids. I have to kick them out. No, you have to meet them where they are, create strategies for them, and hopefully get them to a space where they can at least get through your class. Maybe it won't be as clean or perfect as you probably prefer, but the point is you have to teach them and get them to a better space. That is your role. That's your job, to teach. I'll give you a perfect example, right? I had a young lady way off her rocker, just wasn't able to get through the class without disrespecting somebody. And oftentimes her disrespect was aimed at me. I knew that she had the potential, but she just wasn't showing it. And I'll tell you, some of my strategies were downright interesting. Even I was a little surprised with what I did and how she reacted to it. So one of the things I said to her was, you know what really drives me insane is that you are one of the smartest kids in this classroom, yet you're demonstrating otherwise. That is insane to me. That's one strategy. Another thing I did in a different situation, a young lady was acting out, just completely going off, just crazy. I said, I stopped the entire class. I said, so you really think this is okay? You think this is the coolest thing you could be doing right now? You're stopping an entire classroom to have fun, joke, and laugh. You think that that's okay? And what happened was she was like, wait, what? Because she didn't expect me to break the mold, or for me to stop teaching what I'm teaching, just focus on her for a moment. I said, everybody just stop for a minute, because we can't drive with a flat tire, right? We got 3 tires ready to roll, and we got 1 tire that's flat. It's going to stop the entire thing. We just can't ignore it. I can't ignore her bad behavior in this situation. So I say, so let me get this right. You think your behavior is cool. You think it's okay that you're acting like a 3rd grader and you're this grade. You think that that's okay. You think it's okay for you to be laughing at the back of the class while we're trying to actually get smarter. That actually makes sense to you. I'm curious. I'm asking the question. Like, let's stop the class. Everybody, let's stop. Because I really want to know how this person thinks. You think it's okay that while we're learning, you're in the back of the class, making noises, giggling, laughing, playing, falling on the floor. You think that's mature? You think that's actually a cool thing, huh? Because I'm trying to understand. And my psychology was actually genuine. I'm like, I really want to know if that's how you think. Do you think that it is a cool thing? Do you think it makes you look cool to laugh and giggle and play as if you're younger than what you are, and then being on the floor and falling out of the chair? Do you actually think that's cool? And it was a very interesting moment because she stopped and thought, like, wait a minute, I am acting like a little baby. And you know what? I really don't think that's cool. Because again, these children's reputation is everything to them. Do you really want your reputation to be that you act younger than what you are? Do you really want your reputation to be that you act like a baby? Like, is that what you want to be known for? And she had this thing about, you know what? I've never heard anybody make it seem. And I know I took some risk. I will admit that. It was slightly risky to go in this direction, but I'm a professional and I know how to use my words in a way that allows a student to think in a more retrospective manner. All right. Never disrespected her. Just asked her some genuine questions. And it was just honest. Like, hey, so do you think that's okay? Right. Those are just a few strategies that, I've used amongst the many. Right? Amongst the many. Sometimes a phone will go off and I'll say, hey, do you think it's okay that you're playing video games while we're trying to learn? You see what I'm saying? You just ask a rhetorical question that allows them to think. But the point, or I should say the overarching point is, your job is to take them where they are, coach them up, and say, you know what you're doing is wrong. Okay, use it. And I'll tell you another strategy. I don't mind sharing my strategies. A student used profanity. I said, do you think that makes you sound intelligent? When you use 1 and 2 syllable words that are only 3 and 5 letters long, you think that makes you sound intelligent? You think that's cool? You think it's cool to sound that way? I said, do you realize that is cool now? But once you get to be my age, if you're still doing that, do you know what that makes you look like? That makes you look like you're not educated. Do you realize that you're talking as if you're uneducated? Yes, it might be in now, but you will get older. And if that's all you know how to do is use 1 and 2 syllable words, they're only 3 and 5 letters in length. Do you understand that makes you seem uneducated? Do you understand that? And it makes the person think like, I never saw it that way. Another strategy, I'm sharing my strategy today. This was just yesterday. The class is going on. I got students talking while I'm talking. I said, you know what? Stop the entire class. That's my strategy. Stop the entire class. And I said, maybe it's my fault. Maybe I'm expecting you all to do something that you've never been taught. I said, maybe you don't know how to be quiet. I thought you might, but I can tell by how many people are talking with me as I'm giving out important information in a lesson. Obviously, it's rather clear that there's several individuals in this classroom. I'm not calling out anybody directly. That's a strategy. That don't know how to be quiet. So I said, let's stop what we're doing. I'm trying to teach you my subject matter or my content, but you can't even sit in the chair like your ages. So let's go back and do this from step 1. Let's go to the basics. I sat down and I sat still for 30 seconds. And I said, this is how you be quiet. I got a couple snickers. I said, okay, there's a couple scholars laughing. So let's do it again, because that means you missed it. Okay, because I'm willing to do this all day long. I'm willing to do this for the next 3 weeks until you understand. Because if you can't sit and be quiet, that means that you can't digest information. Your ears and your mouth can't work at the same time. It's either you're talking or you're listening. It can't be both. So if you're talking, that means you're not hearing anything I'm saying, and that means I'm wasting my time. So we'll spend the next month on learning how to be quiet if it takes that. I said, everyone, here is how you do it once again. This is how you be quiet. That definitely changed the entire mood of the classroom. It's these strategies, right? And I'm meeting them where they are. I realize that where they are, they don't know how to be quiet in a classroom. I'm not expecting them to be quiet anymore. I'm finding out that they don't know how to do it. I'll go down into the slumps, into the mud, into the pit, to where their behavior is, and I'll coach them up to where they need to be. And in every instance, every example I provided, the next class, the next moment, the next minute, the next week, they all got better. I promise. Okay, so that is one. The next big mistake that teachers make is being unprepared. It is the worst thing that you can do as an educator, not be prepared. Here's what you do to combat that issue. You get a notebook. A notebook like this will do so much for you. In fact, I'll give you 2 tools to get yourself. All right, a notebook and a pen. And you write down everything that you plan to do within your class block. All right, for whatever class you teach. If you teach 1 hour and every class is basically, about the same, you write down, for example, on the first line, take attendance. Always write everything that you plan to do down. So for my notes, it might say something like this. I'll give you a very clear example of what my notes might say. It will say, take attendance. Give students the opportunity to turn in makeup homework. Explain the newest homework assignment. Review quiz 1 questions and answers. Pass back papers. Clean up. Dismiss. I'll write it that way. So as I'm in my flow and in my motion, I'll look at my notes because, everything you write down, you don't have to remember it. And when you don't write it down, you do have to remember it. And if you're in the middle of a war, and when I say war, I mean in a class or a classroom where you're exchanging information and your students are, especially if you're having a crazy day where the announcements is going off, you got kids coming in late, you got people walking by or people coming in to grab students out. It's a lot that goes on within an hour of a classroom. So those notes are like your safety net, right? Things are off rocker and things are out of context and out of order. Well, hey, wait a minute. I'm supposed to collect homework now. Let's get to that. All right, class, can you please take your homework out? Okay, what I do now? Oh, we're going to take take notes for quiz 1. All right, scholars, please take out whatever you're going to use so that we can prepare for quiz 1. You see? And everything is written down for you, and all you have to do is do a quick glance down. And I model what I say. All right, take a look. This is my notes, okay? That's why I don't have to remember what I want to say to you. And when you write it down, it allows you to hit all your points more concisely rather than sitting up there rambling for hours because you're trying to remember what you're supposed to be doing. Let me tell you something. Pen and paper is the greatest invention ever. Okay, let me tell you. So being unprepared is a huge mistake that happens all the time. And no, don't write down what you're supposed to do on a cell phone. Go traditional with a pencil and paper because whatever your procedures are, they need to be written. Okay, and these are things only for you. You're not writing this on a chalkboard or smart board or whatever. These are just your cues that no one ever sees. That way you know what you need to be doing. Okay, next, anticipating the end of the year is a huge mistake that teachers make. I can't tell you how often this happens, and it always makes me cringe. That is, teachers say, oh, well, we only got 144 days left of school. Or, oh, we're down to 216 days left. That is the worst mindset as an educator. And I know a lot of people do it. I know I've probably done it before, so I'm not pointing the finger. But I've since stopped doing it because I realized that I'm looking too far into the future. I'm not being present. I'm looking at my job as a hindrance. I'm looking at my job as anything more or less than a blessing. Being a teacher and helping other people reach their zenith and helping other people find their potential is the greatest occupation that you can have. And we just happen to be getting paid for it. So what are you rushing? You want to get to the summer to do what? Sit in the house and eat potato chips? I mean, I have this saying, like, I don't understand why people rush time. That's the worst thing to rush. Do you understand you're rushing your own demise? I mean, can we just talk about the obvious? Man, I can't wait to the end of the day. Why? So you can be closer to the day you leave Earth? It makes no sense. You know, for me, I love to be present. I don't even want to talk about tomorrow. Let's just stay here. I wish time could slow down. I wish I can stay. You know, sometimes, in my brain, I said, if I could work on Saturday, I would. Because I want to get in the process or in the mindset of enjoying teaching. Now, is it true that I want to work on Saturdays? No. But I'll convince myself otherwise just so I can, avoid that whole, when is the school year over thing? I hate that. Why? Because over the summer, what you want to do? Drink alcohol. And, so even if you do nice things or amazing things or paint on the weekends or wine and it doesn't matter. The point is be present. While you're in the, amazing space that you're in, cherish it. That's why it's called the present. It's a present. It's a gift to be here right now. Okay. I just think people get a little carried away with looking towards the end of the year. Do I get excited when the school year is about to end? Of course. But I'm not saying, hey, we're down to 422 days, 6 minutes. Yeah, I don't, in 2 seconds, I don't do that. All right. I enjoy my job. And I know a lot of people don't like teaching, but let me tell you something. It pays your bills, don't it? So it's a beautiful thing. And by all means, when you start to rush time, your students can tell. All right, we're talking about you're getting close to the end of the school year. It's February. And all of a sudden you're like, well, hey, we're only down to about 3 more months. So I guess I'm going to just take my kids outside every mod or every period. That's how you know you're not focused. You're not locked in. Let me tell you something. My kids, they get so tired of doing work. They're like, wait a minute, we're working on the last day of school. I'm like, we're working until you are out of my sight and I'm not responsible for you anymore. That's how long we're working. Hey, Mr. Knox, are we going to be able to watch movies today? Not at all. I understand we're in our last 2 weeks of the school year. But guess what? I got a 10-question exam with your name on it. We're going to work. You know what? Because working makes time go faster. That's the secret sauce. If you want to get out of the school, if you want the school year to come to a close, then work your behind off because that is the only way it's going to happen. Doing something that, preoccupies you so much so that you're not looking at a clock or watch or a calendar, that's what's going to end things faster. It's not the other way around. Okay, next, speaking of time, one of the biggest mistakes teachers make is not being aware of time, not having a firm grip on time. You should always know what time it is, when things are about to start and when things are about to end. My greatest example is the movie Equalizer with Denzel Washington. It's the most coolest thing he does. Anytime he's about to get into a conflict, he'll check his watch very subtly. You can tell that the other characters in the room don't realize he's looking at his watch, but he just kind of in the middle of a conversation. So you think you're going to do what to that young lady? And then he sets a timer and he destroys the entire room before the timer goes off. That's because he understands time, he appreciates time, and he realizes time is money. If I can knock these guys out in 30 seconds, it's much better than doing it over the span of 30 minutes, and slobbering it out. Where everybody's bleeding and sweating. We done win 12 rounds. If I can do it in 30 seconds because I'm capable of doing so, let's do it. The point I'm trying to make is having a firm understanding of when things are happening is such an underrated skill, okay? I know what time my classes start, what time my classes end. I have such a strong grip on time. I can tell when the entire school is off time or off track. And even when the school is off track, sometimes I'll stay on track because what is in writing is what matters. If in writing it says your class starts at 8:30, that's when you should be starting, even if the school is going through different lapses and the buses is late and all this other stuff, because when it all hits the fan, they're going to go and look at a sheet of paper and they're going to say, well, what does the paper say? The paper says the class starts at 8:30. And if you're doing what the paper says, you know you're on the right track. Okay. And then when you're teaching, one thing you can't allow to happen is that you're in your flow so much that you lose track of time because you don't have a firm grip on it. I know exactly what time everything happens. I know what time the class ends. I know very well. I even set alarms 5 minutes before it ends to ensure that I know. All right. And because I've been that way for years, my students never worry. They know that Mr. Knox is in charge. He knows what time the class starts. He knows what times the class ends. And I don't even have to remind him. He is so on top of everything. When you're on top of your procedures because you wrote them down, and you're on top of the time because you keep a watch on and you understand what time things happen and then, the students can just relax and focus on being kids because you handle all the adult procedures. Okay, I know when everything is happening at all times, and I'm always on time, which we can talk about. We can talk about, how important being on time is, right? If you are asked to be at a particular place as far as teaching kids is concerned, you need to be there. Period. I don't care what anyone says. You need to be there. You need to be on time. And once you show that level of punctuality, the kids trust you. And when you get a student's trust as it relates to doing your adult job, it just allows them to be free. You never know until you know it. Those who know what I'm talking about know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, the next big mistake, and I won't even call this a big mistake, I'll just call it a small mistake, that is wasting learning time on ticky-tack stuff. Bear with me on this one. Here's what I mean. Cell phones, uniforms. I'll stay there for just a moment. Sometimes as a teacher, you can waste a lot of time on arguing with students. Put your phone up. Put your phone up. I told you, put the phone. It takes so much time to keep doing that. Hey, take the hoodie off. Take the hoodie off. You can't wear hoodies. The school says. Look, always do what you're asked to do by your superiors. But I'll just tell you, as far as my classroom is concerned, I'm not wasting class time on cell phones. I'm just not doing it. I tell my students one thing and one thing only. I don't care what you do with your cell phones. They are amazing resources. And how hypocritical is it for us to tell students they can't use cell phones when we use our cell phones sometimes during class? You want to know why? Because things is happening. It's called evolution. These children have evolved. They're not us. They're not our generation. And quite frankly, they're going to want to check their cell phone. I'll be very frank. If we had them in our generation, we would be glued to them too. All right, so I've already realized that this is a losing battle, and I'm not going to waste learning time on it. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give parameters and boundaries for them to follow and stay within. And here it is. I'll tell them this. I'm not going to say explicitly, you can't use your cell phone, because they can say, well, Mr. Knox said this. No, I don't say that. I said, I'm not going to police your phone, but I should never hear your phone. You see what that does? It subtly tells them you can use it, but you just can't hear it. And that saves me a ton of time every day. Okay. And also it helps me with behavioral issues, because students who don't plan on doing anything anyway, and that's whether I take the phone, keep the phone, put them by themselves. There are sometimes students who just are not motivated to work. And I don't care what anybody says. They exist, okay? And if you are not a teacher, you probably don't get it. It's just sometimes you have students who are just not motivated to work no matter what. And you know what? Listen, keep the phones on silent. As long as I don't hear them, we'll move on from there. And I've learned through that particular method, I can sometimes get those students to work because, hey, as long as they have a little rap music in their ear, they'll move their pencil a little bit. They'll move it enough. And they won't spend the entire class trying to create chaos because now they have withdrawal symptoms. They can't use the phone. They don't want to be in the class. So what are they going to do? They're going to act up and just have fun that way. So I'm not going to fight the cell phone battle. I'm just not doing it. All right. And the other thing is the uniforms, because some people, I used to do this. I used to be the biggest stickler for, all these little peripherals. Hey, the school says you can't wear bracelets. Oh, you can't wear big hoop earrings. Oh, nope, you can't wear little decorations in your hair. Oh, you can't wear a sweater backwards. I used to do that, and I just take 5 to 10 minutes arguing with kids every day. I've gotten to the point where you say, you know what? I'm done with it. Because here's what happened. I was such a stickler when it came to the wrong color hoodie or whatever that the kid went to the principal and said, well, Mr. Knox is not letting me wear it. And even though it is in writing that they can't wear this kind of hoodie with graphic symbols on it, the principal sided with the student. And I realized from that day forward, you know what? It's just not organized enough for me. I'm never doing it again. Ever. I don't care if we get a different principal. I'm not doing it again. I wasted so much time enforcing these rules just for the principal to say, well, you know what? I have a personal relationship with the student and let him wear it. I'm done. All right. That's all I need. Just show me one time where it's inconsistent and I'm done forever. All right. And the last one, this is the most important one. Demonstrating, let me set it up perfectly. The last mistake that teachers make that you have to avoid is not demonstrating your own rules. All right. If you have a rule about no cell phones, don't you ever bring out a cell phone in that class. You hear me? Put it away. All right. If you have a rule about no profanity, don't you ever say a curse word, not even hell or damn. There should be 0% cursing because that is your rule. You can't break your own rules. If you want the kids to be on time, you have to be on time. Whatever your rules are, you have to demonstrate them. And I can't say it any more clear than that. All right, because when you demonstrate them, then they know what it looks like. And then they can follow it as well. And then they also can be held accountable when they break it. Because they can't say, well, you did it. They can't say that, can they? All right. So that is my list. These are the things that a lot of teachers, or I should say, these are the mistakes that some teachers are making that you might even be making. And perhaps if we continue to work through it, I'll provide more and more strategies to help you fix them. Okay. Well, with that being said, it's been a pleasure. I'll see you on the next one.